All right. So let me pull this over and see if I can see you guys better. So are y'all seeing AutoCAD on your monitor right now? Okay, good. Okay. So let me go back and get my screen set up for AutoCAD then. All right, so in drawing the Dino Pig, the purpose of that drawing is to throw you into a bunch of opportunities to use the three principal ways that you draw lines. And first of those lines is direct entry. And when you're doing direct entry, you expand my monitor here a little bit. When you're doing direct entry, of course, you pick on a line and you pick a start point, and you just move to the right or the left or up or down and type in a distance and press enter. It's very simple. But the thing you want to make sure that you're doing to ensure that those lines are truly horizontal or vertical is to make sure that this icon right down here on the status bar is on. And if it's on, it will be blue, and this is called the polar tracking icon. And polar tracking allows you to snap to horizontal or snap to vertical, but it also gives you the freedom to snap, or not snap, but just move in between those points. Now, I want to show you another alternative to that, which is this guy right down here, which is Ortho. And now I don't have Ortho on because I can't have polar tracking and Ortho on at the same time. But when I pick on Ortho, the only place I can go is perfectly horizontal or perfectly up or down or north or south, depending on how you're looking at that, right? So even though I try to move into an area where I would think there would be an angle, AutoCAD just defaults or just hangs on to that horizontal, or if I go straight up, it will let me snap to north or south. So there's a time for this, like if you have a drawing where every line is going to be perfectly north or south, it makes sense that you might have Ortho on down here. But when you have polar tracking on, you can still get your horizontal and vertical, but you have the freedom to move inside those angles. And so I usually draw with polar tracking on versus Ortho. But one thing I want to point out to you, you can turn Ortho on just by typing F8, and you can see it when you park your cursor on the Ortho mode button, it says F8 there. That's an alternative. And F10 can toggle polar tracking off or on. The other thing that we need to take away from drawing the Dino Pig and this project and how to draw lines, in addition to our direct entry way of drawing lines, is we have to deal with drawing lines at angles. And so, of course, the way to draw a line at an angle is to start a line and type in the distance for that line. And so, for example, if I type in 2, and then that's going to be my distance, but I have to press the Tab key. And that's what tells AutoCAD that it's going to be followed by an angle. So if I type 30, it's going to be 30 degrees and press enter. So I've got a line 2 inches long at an angle of 30 degrees. All right. So I'm going to show you, though, this is part of the Dino Pig right down here. I'm going to delete this guy out. And I'm going to use a dimension, and it's called an angular dimension, to show you about this. So when you measure from the horizon to an angle, you can see what the angle is that we arrive at. If we start over here, I call this east because I think about this as a compass. So AutoCAD angles begin at east, and when they're drawn above the horizon, they're drawn counterclockwise, like this is right here. So that's 45 degrees. The problem happens for us is when an engineer gives us this angle and tells us that the angle of this line is at 35 degrees. Well, if you pick on your line command and you type in 0.75, for example, and then you press Tab, you can't type in 35, because if you do type in 35, it's going to go over here because AutoCAD references its angle off of east. So what you have to do is figure out what the supplementary angle is of 35. And so you really need to know what this angle is, and the way we do that is we subtract 35 from 180. So when you have 180 degrees and then you divide that into two angles, the two angles represent supplementary angles to each other. So I actually going to show you something here. I'm sorry, I picked on the wrong one. This guy's the one I want. In chapter 2, there was some talk about supplementary angles. So you can read about supplementary angles in chapter 2, and this is where they actually start to help you out. But there's a couple of other things in chapter 2 that are helpful. Those could be the complementary angles. What if the engineer gives you 60 degrees and not 30? But you need to draw this angle right here. Well, you have to know that to subtract the 60 from 90 and find the complement, which is the 30 degrees, because that's the angle you're going to be drawing at. Or sometimes you might get in a situation where you know this angle here, a similar angle like to this right here, or you know one over here on the side. And if you use the opposite angle way of looking at stuff, then the opposite angle from that would also be 60. So maybe this is the one you need to know. But of course the problem here is, even if you're trying to draw this and you know this guy over here, you still have to norm it from east being 0 and draw all the way around over to here. Okay, so sometimes it's going to be a little tricky to figure out what the angle is when you have to draw it in AutoCAD. Now, adjacent angles, obviously that one's helpful because we have 180 degrees if we draw an arc along a straight line. And so if we know the 30 here, we know this is 150, or if we know 30 on this side, we know this is 150 by subtracting 30 from 180. So just pointing that out, that in chapter 2, if you're not really familiar with complementary, supplementary, opposite, and adjacent, that can help you out on some of these AutoCAD problems that you'll have. All right, let's go back to AutoCAD here. Oh, let me see. I want to use this AutoCAD. The other one I had open, this is actually AutoCAD 2020, and I don't want to use that. I'm going to close that guy down because you guys all have AutoCAD 2021, or you should anyway. So the third way of drawing lines is when you start a line, like at a corner right here, and you know that you want to go over a distance and then let's say down a distance, or over a distance and up a distance, and those are called relative coordinates, and you want to type in the two coordinates. So if you know you want to go over 2 inches and you're going to the left, you actually have to type -2 and tell AutoCAD you're going in a negative direction. So you type -2, comma, but then if I want to go straight up, let's say 1, I would type 1 as a positive number and press enter, and then press escape. And so this line here is found by drawing over -2 and up +1. Okay, so those are the 3 principal ways: direct entry, polar coordinates, which are the ones where you type the distance, tab, and the angle, and then relative coordinates where you type 2 coordinates in. So you're going to have to get comfortable with all that, and it takes a little while to get there. Now I'm going to come back to this polar coordinate down here and throw another dimension on here. So when I measure from east to here, when I draw below the horizon, I'm actually drawing clockwise, and when I draw above the horizon, I'm drawing counterclockwise. But AutoCAD generally turns angles counterclockwise. So if you want to rotate something and use the rotate command, what's going to happen is that it's going to, let's pick rotate, like here for example, and let me just pick some of this stuff right here to rotate. I'll press enter. It says select a base point. I'm going to pick right here. And now it wants to know what my rotation angle is. If I type 30, for example, for my rotation angle, what it does is it rotates all those parts 30 degrees, but counterclockwise. So generally when AutoCAD does a rotation, it's rotating counterclockwise. So just keep that in mind as kind of a rule of how AutoCAD does things. Okay. So anybody has a question, pardon me, feel free to unmute and stop me and ask a question. All right. Next thing I wanted to show you guys about are a couple of things that are related to the next projects we're going to do. So on the screen here are your next two projects. And the first project is actually this guy right here. And this project begins on page 216 of your textbook. So I can give you a second if you need to go over to page 216. Let's see if I can. Okay. So on page 216 we have this project called the Gasket, and it only has a front view because it doesn't have any thickness to it. I mean, it's like really thin, might be a 1/16 of an inch or less. So it's more of a drawing exercise in how do you accurately place things into a drawing. How do you place circles, holes? How do you put center marks on, things like that. And so there is a video in Chapter 4, Module 2 that will lead you through how to draw this guy right here. Okay, and there's several things going on in this project, though, I want to point out to you. And the few things you want to make sure that you set up in AutoCAD. So if anybody has AutoCAD open on a second monitor, what you might want to do is, do some of the stuff I'm showing you. Otherwise, there are some videos in the module, Chapter 4, Module 1 that you already looked at. Hopefully you've looked at those videos and seen how to set up AutoCAD a little bit, but I'm going to show you a few things. Whenever you first open AutoCAD, if you look up here across the top of the screen, you have this one menu that runs across right up here that says Home, Insert, some of those things like that. It's really important that you guys turn on a second menu called the menu bar. And the way you turn the menu bar on is you look across the top of the screen, and there's a down arrow right there. Pick on that down arrow and select Show Menu Bar right there. Okay, and I'll show you where these videos are so you can go through this. But you pick on Show Menu Bar, and you can see it adds a second menu right above here. That menu bar used to be a standard menu bar in AutoCAD, and then a few editions ago somebody got the idea to turn that off and make you turn it on. Now once you turn it on, it stays on, but it's a really important tool to have, is this menu bar up here. And so the way I did it, I picked on this down arrow right here, and I picked Show Menu Bar. Now once it's on, your option is to hide the menu bar, which you don't want to do. The second thing you want to do is pick on that down arrow again and pick on Workspace. And when you pick on Workspace, it's going to add this little bit of information right up here. This is called your Quick Access menu up here, and you can add tools to this. But you are drawing in what AutoCAD calls the Drafting and Annotation Workspace. All right. Now, another place to find the Drafting and Annotation Workspace is on your status bar. And the status bar is down here on the bottom. Okay. Now, at this time, I don't see that as an option. So I think, let me see if I can expand this a little bit. That's weird. My screen is expanded so far that it's kind of cutting off. So let me see if I can just drag it over a little bit. Oh, I see what it is. I've got this recorder down there. Okay, in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you're going to see those three parallel lines on the status bar. And so if you're missing tools, what you do is you pick on those three lines right there. Now, and what that does is it's going to open up a menu, and you can turn on the tools that you want to see on the status bar. And we have a video in the Chapter 4 Module 1 that's just called the status bar, and it covers all of this stuff and shows you. But I'm going to show you, and I may have pointed this out to you guys the other day, but it's important to have these guys on. Let me find this in the book, and I'll tell you what page. If you look on page 121, you can see an example of the status bar open, and everything that has a check mark by it on page 121, those are good tools to have on. And if there's a check mark next to it, it means they're going to be added to your status bar right down here. And one of the ones that's really good to have is this guy right here. This one that says line weight. So I'm going to pick on line weight, and it's going to add it to the status bar. So when I pick on that, it's actually this guy right here. So I'm going to go ahead and close this down. So all I need to do is pick over here to the side of that. Now, this is the line weight tool right here. It's like those three lines. And watch my screen. I'm going to zoom in on this. When I turn that off, you see the difference in the line weights? And so when I have that on, I can see the relative line weights of things. And so, you know, we've talked about that we would have our visible lines thicker than our center lines and our hidden lines. Normally, if this is turned off, you don't see that difference in the line weights, but when you turn that on, it definitely helps you to figure out what's going to print thick and what's not. So I can kind of preview and see what to expect when I print this thing. Now, the way I'm getting these different line thicknesses is this. If you look right up here, whenever you open Autocad, it gives you a layer called layer 0. And that's the only layer it gives you. And you have to make new layers if you want layers, but I'm going to pick on the down arrow next to that. And I have made a layer called Viz, which is short for visible. And all of the red lines are on the visible layer. And I'll prove that to you. When I pick some of those red lines, look right up here in my layer box and you can see it says Viz. All right. Now I'm going to pick on that line right there, and it's on a layer named Cen, C-E-N, for center. And so here are the layers that I have. I have a border layer, I have a center layer, I have a def points layer, which don't worry about that. I have two text layers. I have a layer called viewport and one called Viz. All right. And, so what's going to happen when you do the third drawing in this series, in the video, in the first video, it's going to show you how to make layers. But there are also videos on making layers in the Chapter 4 Module 2 link when you click on that in Blackboard. So just to point out, this is what you're seeing when we start to talk about layers. Now, when you make this drawing that you're going to draw, and like I was saying, it's the gasket drawing. The gasket drawing, we're not going to put it on layers. We're just going to draw it all on layer 0. And so to give you an idea of what that's going to look like, if I select all of this right here, and then I pick layer 0, that's what it looks like when it's on layer 0. It's not near as nice as when it's all layered and has line weights and stuff like that. But we're going to be introducing you to making layers and adding line weights and making your drawings look better. Now, if I wanted to put this back on those layers, what I could do is I could window everything, and I could come up here to my layer control and pick on this down arrow and go pick Viz. All right. Now, the problem with that is it put everything on the visible layer. So next I would come in here, and remember, if you pick from right to left, anything that green box crosses is going to be selected. So if I come in here and I just pick on all this stuff like this, and then I zoom in here and just do some little right to left pick. So I'm picking once, letting go, picking again. And then I'm going to come up here, pick once, let go. So just drawing a little green crossing window here to select all that stuff. So I've selected all of my center lines. So if I go up here to my layer now and pick on that down arrow, and I go to CEN, which is my center layer. I could name it whatever I want. I could have written it out as center, but I was just abbreviating. I picked center. So you can see that those lines have been moved to the center layer, and the center layer has thin lines set to it. Okay. So by next week, you're going to be comfortable with making layers and doing all this stuff. But for right now, that's some extra layers to add on to what you're trying to learn. So we're not going to worry too much about the layers yet. Okay. To make a new layer, though, what you do is this whole panel right here, this is the layer panel. And if you pick on layer properties, it's going to open up a dialog box that looks like this right here. And so, like I said, AutoCAD gives you layer 0. But to get a new layer, you're going to pick on this button right here. And if you just move your mouse on there and park it long enough, it will tell you this. And remember, all of this is going to be in a video, so you can watch this. And I'm also recording what I'm doing now, and I'll post this in the recorded videos. So you pick on new layer, and AutoCAD just makes a new layer and names it layer 1, right? And so you can come in here and you could call that, and get to where you guys can see that, visible, for example. And I'm going to stretch this box out a little bit so we can see. Sometimes you need a little more room in between these so you can see what's going on. All right, so the visible layer that I've made, it's defaulting to white, but if I pick on the word white right there, it's going to open this up. So if I wanted to make the visible layer blue, I could pick on this blue button right here. And what I recommend is choosing these colors down here. These are kind of primary colors, like red, yellow, green, cyan, blue, magenta. Because if you pick up here into the color matrix, your color just has a number assigned to it. And so it's kind of hard to know what the actual color is. When you're down here, you're actually going to get blue if you pick blue. And you pick OK. So now my visible layer has blue assigned to it. Now it's a continuous line, which means it doesn't have any dashes in it. And the line weight, remember we said line weight is the thickness of a line? If I pick on line weight, right now it's default. Default line weight is about 0.28 inches, so it's a thin line. So it's 0.28 millimeters, I should say, which is thin, 1/4 of a millimeter. So I'm going to pick on default, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to pick 0.5 millimeters instead of 0.28 millimeters and pick OK. All right, so now I've made this new layer. It's blue, it has continuous lines, and it's 0.5 millimeters, so I can close this down. Now, I come back up here to where my layer is and pick on this down arrow and choose visible. That's the new layer that I just made. And now I go over here to the line command, and you can see that blue line I'm drawing. That's because it's blue, it's on the visible layer, and it has a thickness of 0.5 millimeters. Now, remember, in order to see line thickness or line weight, down here on the status bar, if you unclick that, you can, it turns off your line weight. So you don't have to draw with line weight on, but it's good to occasionally turn it on so that you have an idea of what's going to print thicker than other lines are going to be. All right. Okay, so before you start drawing this guy right here, and before you draw this, I want to point out a few things to you. Okay, first off is, like I said, I went up here and I picked on this down arrow, and I turned on show menu bar, and I turned on workspace. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I want to show you is, you see this button right up here that says format? This is a really important thing to remember because format has a lot of settings in it. So when you pick on format, one of the things that you can change are what are called the units of your drawing. So I'm going to pick on this word units right here. You can also type units and press enter. When you type on units though, it opens up this little dialog box, and right here you're told what the units are that you're drawing in. Now, right now I'm drawing in decimal units. Decimal units are like inches and decimal inches, all right? So this is probably what I'd want to be in if I were making a mechanical drawing. Does that make sense? Because you're doing inches and decimal inches. But let's say I was going to make an architectural drawing. I don't want to draw in inches and decimal inches in an architectural drawing. So I'm going to show you again how to do this so you don't, I mean, it takes a little while to get the hang of this. You go up to Format, you pick on Units, and it opens this guy up, and it's generally going to default to decimal, but if you pick on this down arrow right there, I can choose architectural units. Now look at my units. They're now in feet and inches. So if I were going to start typing in coordinates or lengths of lines, I would want to type those in feet and inches now. So this is what architects use. And the assignment that's going to be due next Tuesday is actually going to be 3 drawings, and one of them uses architectural units. One is a small floor plan. So the first 2 drawings, this is the first drawing, this is the second drawing. They look much more complicated than they are. If we were in class face-to-face, what I would do is have you open Autocad, and I would open Autocad and I would project to your second monitor. We have 2 monitors in all the classrooms. And I would lead you through drawing both of these, and we would probably have both of them drawn in 30 minutes. And that would be with me explaining everything. So they actually go pretty fast. So you have a video for this, and you have a video for this. So you just need to follow the video. And I'll point out where all that stuff is later. But one of your considerations in making a drawing, one of your first considerations in making a drawing is, what are the units that drawing should be in? And since we're doing machine parts here, mechanical drawings, we want to be in decimal inches. Now, if you look at the top of page 216, and you look at some of those dimensions that you see there, and you kind of ask yourself, how many decimal places of precision do these dimensions go to? And you can see that you've got like a 3.50, so that's 2 places of precision. But then you have some dimensions, like you've got one that's 1.625, so that's 3 places of precision, right? So you would want to make sure that your units would allow you to have 3-place precision at least. So I'm going to go back to Format again and pick on Units. So I know I want decimal inches, but here's my precision. And you can see my default precision is going to 4 decimal places. If I pick on this down arrow right here, I can set that to 3, because I know I don't need anything greater than 3 places of precision on this drawing right here. So what this means when you have 3-place precision is this. If you tried to type in a dimension that had 4 places of precision, it would round it to 3. AutoCAD will just round it. It won't show it at 4 places. So just so you understand what precision is. But, you know, if you looked at that drawing at the top of page 216 and you had some dimensions that went to 4 places, you would want to make sure that your precision was set to 4 places in your units. Okay. Now, when we go to architecture, if you look right here, my precision says 1/8 of an inch. So what that means is if I tried to put in a dimension to 1/16 of an inch, it wouldn't allow that. It would round it to the nearest 1/8 of an inch. So if I wanted 1/16 inch to be my precision on my drawing, I would pick on the down arrow, and I could come over here and choose 1/16. But you know, in architecture, 1/16, that's really tight tolerance when you're working with lumber that's, you know, curved and all sorts of stuff. It's kind of hard to hold those tight tolerances like you would on a machine if you were making a machine part. Okay, so I'm going to go back to decimal. So when you get into this project, I want you, look on page 216, And in step 1, number D, direction number D, it says set the units to decimal. So that's what it's referring to, is picking format and making sure that your units are set to decimal. And then it says in F, it says set the Textile Font to Arial. Okay, so we haven't looked at that, but and that will be covered in the video. But again, you see this format. This is important because when you pick on format, that's where your textile settings are too. So if you pick on textile, you get this dialog box that opens up, and the textile that is the default is called standard. So we don't need to change that. But what F says is it says set the textile font to Arial. Here's your font over here. And if you pick on this down arrow, you can see all the fonts that AutoCAD has. And I think what's going to happen for you guys is that the font that's going to be set there is TXT. It's this guy right here. And here's an example of what that font looks like. See how simpled out that font looks? It's just nasty. It's a nasty looking font, but that's what AutoCAD is defaulting to. And so if you hand in a drawing with that, I'm going to mark it up and I'm going to say, what's wrong with you? Don't you know a good font when you see one? I'm going to tell you, set that to Arial, and I'm going to mark 2 points off. Now, these are all in alphabetical order, so if you just type AR, it's going to jump you into the AR area, and then you can go find Arial. Now look at Arial. See, that's a decent, hard-working font right there, not that TXT stuff, okay? So I want you to look and say, now, I like that font. That's a good Gothic font. So we're going to keep the textile name as standard, but we want the font name to be Arial. Now I'll show you some other things we could do. Look right over here on the width factor. If I highlight that, if I were to type 2 right there, what it does is it stretches those letters 2 times. So what we're doing is we're taking a font that we're calling standard, or a text style that we're calling standard, and we're customizing it over here. All right. So we don't want to call this thing Arial. We can just keep it as standard, but the properties of standard are Arial. And right now the width factor is set to 2. I'm going to set that back to 1 so we can see, because that's normally what we have it at, is just 1. But this is how you create a custom text style. All right. And by the end of the semester, all of this is just going to be you'll get all this. So I know right now it's like your short-term memory is getting bombarded with tons of information. But you're going to do this over and over. And don't worry, we've taught thousands of students how to do this. So just just hang in there, and you're going to get this over time, right? Because we're going to repeat a lot of this. So anyway, all of that is coming out of format. So that's an important something to remember. And remember, here's why it's so important, that AutoCAD doesn't even show you that format tool up here if you don't turn on menu bar. So I can't imagine what the decision at Autodesk was when they decided to turn off the menu bar, because it's such an important set of tools. Well, here's what I think. I think there are no drafters at Autodesk, right? There are a bunch of programmers over there, and they make these decisions. And then drafters go, what in the heck are they doing? So you come over here and you pick show menu bar, and now you've got it, all right? All right, so quickly I want to show you a couple of, or some of the commands that you're going to be using. One of them is the rectangle command. So you pick on rectangle, and if you look in step 2, direction B, it says specify the first corner of the rectangle at 4, 5. So what it wants to know is, where do you want to start this rectangle? So you would just type 4, 5 and press enter, right? And you can see that I've got a rectangle right on top of the rectangle that's already there, but that lower left corner is at 4, 5. Then you want to just move out in the direction that you're going right here, and it says in step C, it says when prompted to specify the other corner, type 3, comma 3.5. So I'd type 3, comma 3.5 and press enter. And you see that blue rectangle. So you start this drawing by creating a rectangle. And then you're going to edit that rectangle. So we're not even drawing it using the line command. You're going to be surprised how few lines we actually draw. We're going to use things like rectangles and copies and offsets and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press escape, and I'm going to move that rectangle over to the side. Let's just move it like right there and kind of zoom in on it. Now remember, when you zoom, you're just rolling the wheel of your mouse, and then you can hold down on the wheel of your mouse and you can pan. When you draw this, you should be this close right here. You should not be trying to draw with your drawing out that far, right? You want to zoom in and pan and get close to it so it's easy for you to see what's going on. Now, the next thing it tells you to do in here is to explode this rectangle. So when I pick on a rectangle, it's one entity made of 4 lines, but it's not broken into 4 lines, it's one entity. And so the directions on D in step 2 say to explode it, and that's in the modify panel. So this is your modify panel right up here, and you pick on explode. So you can pick explode first, and you can pick that and press enter. And you don't see anything happen except when you go up here and pick on it, you can see that it's broken into 4 lines now. It's not one entity anymore. And that's what we needed to do, because we're going to do things with these lines individually. Okay, and we don't want it behaving like one entity. Now I'm going to do an undo and turn it back into one entity again. So the way I exploded that was I picked the explode command, and then I picked that and press enter. But AutoCAD doesn't really matter the order that you pick things in. So I could have exploded that by doing this. I could have picked the rectangle and then gone and picked the explode command. And when you do that, you don't even have to press enter. It just explodes it. All right. So the order matters. So if I'm going to pick explode, look what AutoCAD, it says select objects. You pick that, but it thinks you might want to explode some other things. So it keeps asking you to select objects until you press enter. So that did explode it, but I had to do that extra step. Where if I knew I wanted to explode this guy, if I want to do it quicker, I would just pick on the rectangle and just pick, okay, explode that. And it's done. I didn't have to press escape. So, over a full day of drawing, you don't want to be making all those extra steps. So eventually you learn, hey, this is the more efficient way to explode things, or to, whatever it is that you're trying to do with those sorts of things. So we drew a rectangle and we exploded it into separate parts like that. Now, I think what I'll do is I'm going to change the color of this guy to just white. So it just makes it, maybe that'll be easier for you guys to see what I'm doing here. All right, so the next command, this is like a command you're going to use all the time. It's this guy right here, looks like a horseshoe. That's the offset command. When you pick on offset, look what it says next to your cursor. It says specify the offset distance. We're going to type 0.5 and press enter. Once you've pressed enter, it says select the object to offset. I'm going to pick this line right over here. I'm going to pick that, and then it says specify a point on the side to offset. So here's the deal. AutoCAD will offset that line 1/2 inch, and it just depends on which side I pick. So I want to move to the right. I can move anywhere to the right and pick with my left click button, just pick. And what it did, it took this line right here and it made a copy of it 1/2 inch away. It offset that 1/2 inch away. All right. And so I'm still in the offset command. So I could pick another line and I could offset it. And I could pick another line and pick above it. And I can pick this guy over here. So that's how offset works. You stay in it until you press escape. And once you press escape, you're out of it. All right. So now I've got like a Frank Lloyd Wright style window going on. Now I want to show you something about a command that's really helpful. Just like offset, you're going to use it all the time. There's offset. You see the scissors up here? Trim. Pick on trim, and then it says select the object to trim. Well, if I want to trim any of those lines, all I have to do is go in there and pick on them. And you can see they trim between, like this line right here is not going to erase the entire line. It's going to be trimmed to that vertical line right there. So trim. It's not like erase. I mean, erase, when you erase something, it erases the entire line. See? But when you when you trim it, it trims between the two things that touch it, and then it can trim there and it can trim there. All right, so offset and trim, very important commands. You're going to get to use them a lot, and they're covered in the videos as you go through it. Now, for you guys who took this class in the spring, and I know there's a couple of you, in earlier versions of Autocad, trim didn't work this way. And so I'm going to do an undo and get back to where I was. In earlier versions of Autocad, you had to pick, when you picked trim, you had to press enter, and then you could start trimming. Well, you don't have to press enter anymore. Now, the reason I want to point that out to you is you're learning with AutoCAD 2021, but you might get a job next year at a company that uses AutoCAD 2020. And so trim would not work the way it works now if you were using AutoCAD 2020. You would have to know to pick trim and press enter. All right. So I've been picking trim and pressing enter for the last 20 years. So, it's going to be hard for me to break that habit. That's why I hate Autodesk. They do this stuff just to mess with you, But anyway, so I'm going to erase some of these things out, and I'm going to show you what's going to happen, though, in this. So remember, we offset this line 1/2 inch right there. The directions are going to say, do another offset and set the offset distance to 2. I'm going to press 2 and press enter. And then it says select the object to offset. And we're going to pick the bottom line. And then we're going to pick anywhere above that, and we just offset that line. So we took this line right here and made a copy of it 2 inches above it. Now we're going to go in and change that. We're going to do another 1/2 inch offset. So we're going to pick right here on offset. And again, it says specify the offset distance. Now look what is in the blue. It says 2, because AutoCAD remembers the last value you put in there. So I'm going to type 0.5 and press enter. And this time I'm going to pick this line right here, and I'm going to pick above it. And that's the last offset I need to make for right now. So I want to escape to get out of the offset command. Now I'm going to pick the trim command, and I'm going to trim that line right there, this line, this line, this line, and this line. Okay, do you see that notch we got over here? So that's how we get to that notch. And so you're going to learn a whole bunch about offset and trim as you do this, and that's going to help you later on. Now, look right down here. We have a filleted corner. You see that rounded corner we have right there? And I'm going to turn in the book, show you where that one is located at. It looks like that's in step 10. So I'm going to jump over to step 10, and it says use the fillet command to put a radius in there. And in step B, it tells you that the radius is 0.5 for that. So here's how we use that. Right up here in the modify toolbar is the fillet command. When you pick on fillet, AutoCAD says select the first object. The problem is AutoCAD doesn't know the radius. It just, it's like it's ready to fillet, but it doesn't know what to really do. So what you have to do is this: instead of trying to pick these 2 lines to fillet those, you need to come right down here on the command line and see it says fillet. Go pick radius. And then look what AutoCAD says. Oh, specify the fillet radius, and you type 0.5 and you press enter. Now AutoCAD says select the first object. You can pick this line here, and you can pick that line there. It does not matter what the order is. And it fillets that corner 0.5. Okay. So remember, you have to tell AutoCAD what the radius is. So if I'm going to do an undo real quick. So you pick on fillet, and it says select the first object. And if you didn't put a radius in and you pick there and there, nothing would happen because it doesn't know the radius. So you pick on fillet, and you see this word radius? You can pick on the word radius, but I want to point something out to you because I want you all to be AutoCAD ninjas. You see those words? There's 5 words there, and some of those letters are capitalized. In AutoCAD, when you see a capitalized word, all you need to do is type the capital letter and press enter, and it will do the same thing. All right. So if I type, instead of picking right there, if I type R and enter, it puts me into fillet radius. It wants me to tell it what the radius is going to be. So on any command, when you see that capital letter, if you just type the capital letter and press enter. So some people like the keyboard. Some people like to click. Some people like keyboards. So I'd type 0.5, press enter, and then pick this line and pick that line right there. Okay. Now, if we look, I'm going to back up because I want to show you the chamfer command real quick. Look at step 8, and that's on page 219. It says select the chamfer command from the modify panel. Type D and enter the distance for the chamfer. And if we look back, if you look all the way back on 216 and you look at the object, look in the upper right corner of the object where the dimensions are. And you will see a distance of 0.625 in the upper right corner and 0.5 in the upper right corner. That's what we want to use to chamfer this with, are those 2 dimensions right there. So in step 8, we're supposed to pick the chamfer command. So you go up to the modify toolbar, which is this guy right up here, the modify panel, and you look around and you won't see chamfer. And the reason for that is this. Chamfer and fillet are like joined at the hip. Okay, so if you want to find chamfer, go to fillet and pick on that down arrow right there. When you do, when you pick on the down arrow, chamfer becomes an option. So you pick on chamfer, and look, it replaces fillet with chamfer. So the next time you want to use fillet, you'll have to pick on the down arrow and choose fillet. You pick on chamfer, and it does the same thing. It says select the first line. So I can pick this line and I can pick that line, and nothing happens because it doesn't know those distances yet. So when you pick chamfer, look down here at this line. You need to tell it the distance or the angle for that chamfer. And the word distance is capitalized. So if you type D and enter, it would put you in distance, or you can just come down here and use the left click button and pick on distance. Then look at what you're prompted for. It says specify the first chamfer distance. I'm going to type 0.625 and press enter. Then it says specify the second chamfer distance. I'm going to type 0.5 and press enter. And then it says specify or select the first line. Okay, the first line's the one that needs to have the 0.625. So I'm going to pick the top line, and then I'm going to pick the vertical line over here. So it chamfered in 0.625 and down 0.5. Right. So we used the rectangle command, we used the offset command, we used the trim command, we've used the fillet command, and we've used the chamfer command. We haven't even used the line command to get where we are. So this is how you draw in AutoCAD. It's not exactly like you think you would draw in a bunch of lines. A lot of times you start by drawing things like rectangles and then edit them and stuff. And so if you watch our videos, we're going to teach you how we see this stuff being drawn. Where if we just turned you loose on it and told you to draw this, you would have probably started by drawing a line and then drawing another line. You know, you would have tried to you might have gotten there, but you would have gotten there the slow way. So we're trying to show you how to think like a real CAD drafter would do this kind of thing. Right now, this guy up here looks really complicated, but just to make sure that you're not too afraid of that, I'm going to pick on the circle command, and I want to show you something about circle. If you pick on the down arrow right here, you can choose to draw a circle using its center point and its radius, or its center and its diameter. Most of the time when we're drawing a circle, we know what the diameter is. So I prefer to pick center diameter. And once you pick center diameter, that's the one that will become that goes up here on top. So the next time you pick it, you're going to be in center diameter. When you pick center diameter, it asks you specify a center point. And so in AutoCAD on this next assignment, it tells you to draw that center point at 14, 11 and press enter, and you can see that I've drawn it right there where the center of that cam is. And then it tells you that the diameter of that should be 6. So all I need to do, because it's asking me specify the diameter, if I type 6 and enter right now, you can see that blue circle that I just drew. So I'm going to move that circle out and show you a couple of things. So just show you how simple this is going to be. I'm going to draw another circle, and I'm going to snap to the center point of that. Now, when I want to snap to the center point, so I pick on this circle command, and I go in here. If I can't find the center, if I move near the edge, the center will light up because it will tell me where the center of that circle is. Let's say I pick right there, and I draw my next one 5.33 in diameter. All right. Now, I'm going to draw a line across this guy. Just draw it out like that. So I have a construction line out here. I'm going to draw a circle, and I'm going to snap to that intersection right there, and I'm just going to come out. I'm going to draw it 2 in diameter. What the video is going to show you how to use is a command called array. I'm going to pick on the down. So what this is called a rectangular array. You see those 4 boxes right there? If you pick on the down arrow, you have the option to do a polar array. I'm going to pick on polar, and it says select the objects. And what it wants is what objects are you going to array? So I'm going to pick this guy right here, and then I'm going to press enter. It says specify the center point for the array. That's going to be the center of those circles. And look at that. See, that's what a polar array does. Now all I have to do is look up here in the ribbon, and it says items. That means how many do you want? So I want 6. So all I have to do is type 6 right there. If it doesn't default to 6, I think it's going to default to 6 anyway. It says what's the distance, or what's the angle between each of those? And you could say 60 if you want, or you have the option here, fill. And so what I'm saying here by having 360, I say I want to fill that full circle. So either way that I do it, all I need to do is come over here. I'm going to uncheck associative, and I'm going to pick close array. Okay, so I made an array of those guys right there. That's what you're going to learn in this exercise, is how to draw a circle over here and array it and then trim it. So you're going to get good at using array and trim and stuff like that. So what I would do next, let me just make those white, make them a little easier to see maybe. I would pick on my trim command, and I would trim and so between using trim and erase, I could work my way around, excuse me, and I could just start trimming all this stuff. Okay, it looks like I erased one of mine out. But you see where I'm going with that. It's like this trim and array thing that you're going to do over and over several times to create this shape right here. And so while it looks like that's going to take a long time, it really doesn't, because once you get some of it constructed, you just start doing arrays and trims, and it goes pretty fast. So that's your first assignment. These are projects 4.1 and 4.2. And I'm going to show you Blackboard in just a second, where to find these things. Okay. Now, your third assignment, because these are not going to take very long to do, starts on 226. So I know that a lot of you are interested in architecture. So let's draw something. So what we have here is this little guest cottage, and there's a floor plan. And so there's a sketch that like maybe an architect has made, and you're the drafter in the office. So the architect comes over and hands you this sketch and says, I need you to CAD this up. All right. So I need you to draw this in AutoCAD. So one of the first things you're going to think about is, what are the units that you should be drawing in? You think they're decimal inches? No, they're not decimal inches. So let me go click on this guy right here. This is what it's going to look like when it's drawn. Okay. And it starts by going up here and going to Format and going to Units and setting it to architectural units so that you can type in feet and inches and not decimal inches. If you're in decimal, it's not going to work. Okay. So, and guess what? It starts by drawing a rectangle. So I'm going to pick on my rectangle command, and I'm just going to start a rectangle right there. And it tells you to draw a rectangle that is 18, and then you have to put the foot mark in. The foot mark is just to the left of the Enter key. So 18 feet, comma, 15 feet. So you have to put that foot mark in again. If you don't put and then you need to press Enter. If you don't put the foot mark in, AutoCAD will default to inches, and it would draw that 18 inches by 15 inches. Okay. So if you've ever seen the rockumentary Spinal Tap, this is Spinal Tap. If you've seen it, they have this thing of Stonehenge that they built for us anyway. I think they converted inches, and so anyway, the Stonehenge thing comes in and it's like 18 inches tall. I think they just didn't have their units right in AutoCAD when they did that. All right, so we've got 15 feet by 18, I'm sorry, 18 feet by 15 feet. Now, the walls, it tells you, are 4 inches thick. So how do you think you ought to put the walls in? If we were in the class, some of you would be saying, we're going to offset 4 inches. And I'd say, yes. So you come up here and you try to find the offset command again. You're like, what is it? It's the one that looks like a horseshoe. But see, it's a horseshoe with 2 lines that kind of showing you that it's offsetting. So it kind of looks like offset. Pick on offset. Does AutoCAD know the offset distance? No, not yet, because you've just started a drawing. So see, it says specify the offset distance. You would type 4. You don't have to put inch marks in. You only have to put foot marks in. So you just type 4 and press Enter. It says select the object to offset. You pick that, and are the walls on the outside or are they on the inside? Well, they're on the inside, so you move anywhere inside that rectangle and pick. And so now you've got your walls. And so to show you, I'm going to delete this guy out right there. You see my walls? So I've got an interior wall here and an interior wall here. The way I'm going to put those walls in is I'm going to explode these rectangles. So I'm going to pick both rectangles and I'm going to explode them. Okay, so now they're separate entities. I'm going to go back and use the offset command. And if you look at the bottom of page 228, you can see the distances for those offsets. All right. So for the first one, I'm going to pick on the offset command, and it's going to say specify the offset distance, and I'm going to type 5 and a foot mark and a 4. That's all I have to do, 5 feet 4, and press Enter. Then it says select the object to offset. I'm offsetting this top edge, And then I just need to move below it anywhere. So I've just offset that line right there, 5 feet 4 inches. And then if I look on page 228, I can see I need to offset that 4 inches below this line right here. So I'll go back to offset. It says specify the offset distance, type 4 and enter. Pick right there and pick below. And there's that wall that goes all the way across right here. Okay. Now, look at the corners. See, when this wall comes together, we don't want to have those lines sticking through there. So how are we going to take those out? You're going to trim them. So you don't erase them. If you tried to erase it, you'd erase the entire line out. So you've got to use trim, and you would go in here and you would trim that wall just like that at every intersection. Go over here to the opposite side, go in here and trim. Right. So, you know, I make it look easy. It won't be easy for you, but the video is going to help, and it's going to get easier to the point where by the time you do the capstone project, you're going to be able to take, if you're an architectural student and you want to do that architectural capstone, you're going to be able to draw a really complicated floor plan, put windows and doors in it, light switches, ceiling fans, whatever, put dimensions on it, and then you're going to be able to draw the elevations of it, the front elevations and the side elevations. I promise you, if you stick with this, in like 9 weeks, you're going to be able to do that. So don't get discouraged now. You know, you're just a beginner now. You're going to pick this up, and, you know, all of you guys are young and your brains are very pliable. So, you know, you're going to do okay. So just hang in there with it. All right. Does anybody want to unmute themselves and ask a question? You know, I am starting to realize I must be the greatest teacher in the world, because nobody ever asks questions after you know. Now, some of you stick around and ask questions, and I appreciate that too. You can do that as well. Okay. Looks like we got a question. Oh, I thought we were going to have a question there for a second. Okay. Let's talk about Blackboard then, and where all these directions are and where all those videos are and everything. So I'm going to come down here and click on Blackboard. And let me see here. So this was what you saw when you clicked on Chapter 4, Module 1. So you click on that. I want to show you some videos that are in Chapter 4, Module 1. Now this is where you drew the dino pig. You have a video here on AutoCAD's workspaces. Remember, that was that drafting and annotation thing we turned on. You have a video on the status bar. You have a video on ortho and polar tracking and on dynamic input. These are all things you probably should know, but when you drew the dino pig, you know, we were just mainly focusing on drawing lines. But today I started talking about things like the status bar more, and workspaces and the interface and things. And these are all relatively short videos. And so I think these are really good. There's even a video on selecting objects in AutoCAD. And remember, I showed you guys about picking from left to right and right to left and all that. That's covered in this video right here. So these are some basic stuff, and this is in Module 1. Now, what you're going to be doing today is clicking on Module 2, Drawing and Editing with AutoCAD. And you can read through here, you know, what it tells you to do, and then it says steps 1, 2, and 3. Well, we have a playlist. I made a YouTube playlist that has all the draw commands on it. So if you are having trouble figuring out how to use the, you know, one of the draw commands, like circle or arc, you can pick on this and then go just play the video for the arc command. The modify commands, we've made a playlist, so we've got all of those modify commands like rotate, move, trim, offset, so you can watch videos if you're stuck on how to use any of those. Then in step 2, we have some videos on creating layers and some other things like creating AutoCAD textiles, where you'll go back and click on the format button and go to textile. So there's a lot of important information that you can find in Module 1 and Module 2 that if we were in class, I would have talked about every one of these. But since we're doing this remotely, you kind of have to go watch those videos. Here's what you're going to do next, though. You're going to go to the assignment folder for the Geoquick gasket. When you click on that, it's going to tell you to begin the Geoquick gasket. It has a little PDF that shows you all the dimensions and everything. But here's something new for you guys. Right here in step 2, it says pick on the Imperial Prototype DWG. A DWG is a drawing. So what we're doing in the first 2 of those assignments is we're opening up a drawing that's already kind of set up. That's what a prototype drawing is. So you're going to click on that, and it's probably going to do something like this, and it's going to say, in my case, it says, what should Firefox do with this? And what I want to do is I want to open that with AutoCAD. All right. So if it comes up and it's going to try to open that with Adobe Acrobat, it's not going to be able to open it because it's an AutoCAD drawing. Anything that has a DWG as its extension is a drawing, right? So if I pick OK, what it's going to do, and it's doing it on my opposite screen, so I'll give it a second. I'll drag it over. It's going to launch AutoCAD. Here we go. So it's opening up. All right. So it launched AutoCAD, and this is what, if you look right up here at the top, it says Imperial Prototype. Now, it also says read only. And what that means is that you can draw on this, but if you try to save it, you won't be able to save it because you don't have the rights to save it. So what you want to do with this prototype drawing is this. As soon as it opens, it's going to give you some warnings and say, hey, you're opening a read-only drawing. You sure you want to do it? You just say, yes, I do. Then you're going to want to come right up here where the red A is, the scarlet letter. Pick on that and go down here and pick Save As. Then what you want to do is you want to save this Imperial Prototype in your home folder. And so, this is where we have recommended for you guys that you set up a Google file stream. And then when you do that, it gives you a My Drive folder. When you double click on My Drive, what I recommend is making a folder that has your ACC EID and your name. And I'm going to show you guys where you can get the directions again for how to do this. Once you make that folder right there, that becomes your main folder that you're going to be saving stuff in this semester. And then what I recommend is making a folder inside that folder called DFTG 1405. And then double click on DFTG 1405 and make another folder named Daily Work and make a folder named Capstone Project. Double click on Daily Work and right down here type Geoquick and pick Save. And you will save this Geoquick drawing. So what you're doing is you're renaming the Imperial Prototype to being called Geoquick because that's the name of these 2 projects. We call it the Geoquick project, but it actually has 2 drawings in it, the gasket and the cam that I was showing you guys. So you pick that and you pick Save, and when you do that, right up here, instead of saying Imperial Drawing, it's going to say Geoquick, and it will also say, it'll show you the path to your folder. All right. Now, I'm going to go back to AutoCAD, to Blackboard real quick. You see this link right over here on your left navigation that says downloading CAD software and managing files. When you click on that, if you click right here for Home Folder Management Guide, Our tech support guys wrote this document up to show you how to install Google File Stream. And this allows you to save drawings out there on the cloud using your Google account. Because ACC has given every one of you space because you have a Google mail address right through ACC. And ACC has paid for us to have all this stuff. So you can set up a Google Drive. It'll tell you how to install Google Drive. And once you get that installed, it will tell you to go into My Drive, and let me keep going here. It will tell you to how to create your home folder. So that's where you're going to type in, you make a new folder, and eventually this is where you're going to type in right here your student number and your name. And then, so it'll look like that. And then inside that, I would make another folder named DFTG 1405, which is what it shows you here. So I know that's a lot, but I'm just saying that this is available to you in Blackboard if you want to get set up. The reason why we are encouraging all of our students to put their work out there on the Google file stream is because at the end of the semester, especially if you're in an advanced class, what we will do is you can share that folder with our technology team in our department. And what we'll do is save it to our server and we'll back it up. That way, 2 years from now, when you're in the portfolio class, you'll be able to open up all your work in case, like if you lost your computer or it crapped out on you, we will back up all your work as long as you can put it out there on the Google Drive and share it with our tech team, and then they'll save it all. So that's why we're encouraging you to do this instead of just saving it on your home drive. You can still save it on your home computer on the home drive, but we're going to recommend you also use Google File Stream. Okay, that way you can share files with me, and I can share files with you from Google, and so it's really kind of convenient. So to get back to what I was saying, in Module 1, there are some really good videos on the status bar, workspaces, selecting objects, ortho and polar tracking, those kinds of things. And then in Module 2, there are some videos on making layers, creating textiles, and then you have your 3 assignments. So these 3 assignments are now assigned for next Tuesday at 11 o'clock. Okay. And I would, since you're new to this, just as a max, I would say, it might take you 6 hours to draw these. It might take you 2 hours to draw these. It just depends on how fast you're going. Okay. So kind of, use the time between now and then. Don't wait till Tuesday morning to try to do them, because you might not get them all done if you do that. And, but you're going to learn so much by doing these 3 projects. And when you pick on the project, like I said, you will open the prototype drawing and you'll save it as Geoquick. It tells you right here to rename it Geoquick right over there. There is a video on drawing the gasket. And so when you start your video right here, put it on one monitor if you have 2 monitors and have AutoCAD open on the other monitor. I usually open AutoCAD on the larger monitor and then watch the video and watch a couple of minutes of the video and then pause it and then do what you just saw, and then start the video again and pause it and do what you just saw. And if you need to, rewind the video a little bit and watch it again, see what, that's a great way to learn. And if we were doing this in the classroom, we would still be doing it, well, not on this one maybe, I'd probably lead you through this one. But in the classroom, what we do is we have two monitors, and we still encourage students to open a video and put in their earbuds and do these projects by watching the video and listening to us talk, because we're going to tell you the best ways and to do this stuff, and you don't have to figure it out on your own. So I had a student one time, and he had some roommates, and every morning he would get up and put on videos and where I was talking, telling people how to do the drawing. And his roommates told him later that they got so accustomed to my voice that when they would get up in the morning, if they didn't hear me, they kind of felt lost. Which I thought that was pretty funny. But anyway, so the voice you're going to hear, sometimes you'll hear me, sometimes you're going to hear Ashley Fuller. Okay. So Ashley's also teaching the class, and she's really good. She calls herself the CAD Diva, D-I-V-A, by the way. She may even mention that to you. But she is really good. And so hopefully you'll enjoy the videos. Okay, that's it for today. I will stay online here. And you can send me an email anytime, night or day. I'm checking all the time. And, you know, I'll try to get back to you. And one of the things that's helpful, and just keep this in mind, is if you're really stuck, you could email me and I could say, can you join a Google meeting right now? And I'll just send you an email and say, here's the link to a Google meeting. And it'll just be you and me in the Google meeting. And at the bottom of your screen, you'll see share, you know, so you'll be able to share or project what you're doing. And I'll be able to see your screen, and you can talk and tell me, here's where I'm having trouble. And I can help talk you through that. And we're just on and off in 5 minutes, but now you're unstuck. Okay, so feel free to take advantage of that. Okay. All right, so that's all I'm going to have for today. You're welcome to unmute and ask questions or stick around, and I'll be here until 12:40 today. All right. Otherwise, have a great weekend. Watch your videos. You'll do fine. Bye.